Welcome to Fans of the Forge. I'm Chris. To my left we have
Sean
and
Teresa.
And our special guest we have Theo Nazz.
Hi guys. Yeah.
We just finished lunch actually with Theo, but after we had done some forging with him. Keep an eye out for that video coming soon. But we decided we want to sit down and do a little interview with you as well. We have a number of questions. Hopefully some of the questions dating back to your earlier episodes won't be too obscure for you, but answer them as you see fit, as in depth or not as in depth as you want, whatever you want.
Sure.
I like ambiguity. We're good with ambiguity.
All right, that's the interview. Thank you.
All right. So, should I start us off here? We're gonna hop all the way back to your first appearance on Forged in Fire.
Sure. Yeah.
Season 3, episode 14, Nagamata.
Mm-hmm.
What were your first thoughts when you walked into the set of the Forge set itself?
Yeah, I remember thinking that the set was a little smaller than I thought it would be. Because they used to film in Brooklyn, a lot of the set, they have to just put the camera at the right angle to make it look like this enormous warehouse space. But it's a Brooklyn building. It is small, it is cramped and hot, but they did a good job of making it safe and spaced out enough that you're not really putting yourself or others at risk. But I just remember walking in and being like, oh, okay, all right, this actually feels a little bit more homely than I thought it would.
Cool. All right.
Did you do anything to prepare for that appearance on the show?
In preparation for the episode, I just forged a lot of knives. At that time, Forged in Fire had been out enough to know that they like to challenge you and mix things up with all sorts of random styles and techniques and materials. So I bought a bunch of random materials and tried a bunch of random styles. Worked out pretty well. That's
cool.
Yeah.
Great.
Your plan going in was to have the most fun. Is that your philosophy on life?
I think I produce the best work when I'm enjoying it. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's, knife making is a combination of a sport, a craft, and an art. So you have to be in the mood to create art, to do it to your fullest potential. Just like you have to be up for filing for 3 hours to get that fit just perfect, or physically ready to forge for 4 hours to, you need to be in the right mindset for all these elements. And if you're not, well, then you probably should take a break. Come back to it when you are.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You don't want to just keep pushing yourself to do something if you're not enjoying it.
Yes. Yeah.
So, your first challenge in the Forge was that you guys had to pick up a box, and there was different techniques that you had to then do based on what you picked. And you got the Hata technique.
Yes. Yeah.
Had you done any of the Hata technique prior to the episode?
Well, let me tell you first, I chose the box next to Walter's because I knew that they would not put the immensely tough ball bearing or canister Damascus next to something of nearly the same difficulty, because it doesn't make for a good lineup.
Right.
So I knew that the one next to it was gonna be easier to some degree. I got lucky. I got arguably the easiest challenge for that step of the show. For the episode. Hata technique is essentially just forge welding cleanly.
Right.
Of course, Hata is the presentation of the hamon in addition to the layering on the blade and the overall aesthetics of the blade itself. So you can't really pin down this is what makes it a good Hata technique. That said, I probably should have done more layers, because part of the Hata technique is showing off your layering. Now, the flip side of that, of course, is if you forge weld well, there is no visible lines between your layering. By increasing the number of layers, the chances for impurities to work their way on into the steel and then make the layering evident, that would actually be detrimental to the blade, but part of showing off the technique. So it was a tough choice. Do I do more layers or do I focus on the hamon? I ended up focusing on the hamon, again, because making more layers show up would have been detrimental to the blade.
Right.
A little repetitive, my apologies.
Now with the hamon, the clay
Mhm.
was an issue, right? Was it because you put? They made it seem like it was.
Oh, so traditionally, yes, you do not apply as much clay as I applied. I applied a lot of clay.
Yes.
You're never too sure if it's going to stick. It stuck really well and layered really well, so I just kind of kept it. It worked just fine.
Yeah.
You can do too little clay. You can't really do too much clay. Although I'm sure there's quite a few people that would be upset with me saying that.
Well,
Sorry.
the clay's there to, do a certain job. It's
Yeah.
protect it from heat in the heat treat. So I would.
Well, it's to insulate it.
Right.
We want it to contain its heat and
Right.
protect it from being cooled,
Right.
Oh, okay.
so it doesn't undergo this transformation.
Mhm.
There's a whole conversation right there.
Yeah. Fit and finish of the handles where you suffer the most, in
Mhm.
your words. Is that still the case?
I think I've brought myself up to par with fit and finish since that first episode. I mean, par is kind of a loose definition, but I think that I'm making my handles and fit and finish at an acceptable quality level for what I'm asking, and for the eventuality of becoming a journeyman and then mastersmith. Eventually.
Going back to your hata technique for a minute, can you explain the difference between hata and Damascus?
Yes. So Damascus is a generalized term for pattern welding. Pattern welding is literally folding or doing something to the steel to develop a pattern in it. You don't necessarily need to have two alloys, but the most common way to pattern weld is to have two different alloys that you forge weld together and fold a bunch of times until you develop a pattern in the steel. The hata technique on the other side, if you're using mono steel, like I was supplied, no other alloy involved, then I guess technically it's pattern welding if I had intentionally forged in some impurities, right, to develop a pattern. The interesting thing is, of course, that the pattern we did put into it through the hamon would not be considered pattern welding, because you can do that to just a bar of steel without forging and folding it. I don't know if there is a yes or no on that. Those are just kind of the general terminology and how I would describe it and break it down. I would say no, it's not Damascus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. I think you guys left this question open for me because you kind of skipped back a little bit here. So, in that episode, they highlighted you making a joke. And then they left the entire thing in of you not hitting the punchline properly. The blacksmith in the lingerie bar.
Well, they, to be honest, what they did with it was funnier than the joke itself. So I'm happy that they did that. Because the joke itself is really not that funny. Most of the jokes are not funny. That's what's kind of funny about them, is that they're not funny.
Yes.
Well,
we were watching it again last night, and we were laughing very hard at that whole segment. But it was well done, I thought. But anyway.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like they were poking fun at me. I did say all of that. So it's not like,
Yeah, it's not like you didn't say it.
I gave them that material.
For the Naginata, the outer shell had delaminated. Did you have any other issues making your weapon?
Well, so that I bit off more than I could chew at the start of the Naginata, and quickly realized that yes, it was not a delamination, although it might have become one later on if I had continued to forge it and continued to try and forge weld those layers together. But like at that stage, I'd already realized I have enough material in mono steel to begin with. If this is already presenting a small problem, why let it become a bigger problem? Just nix the fancy bits and make it well, and not worry about these flaws that might come back to bite me later on. You've seen that having to remake the blade on the second to last day, it can end it for people. So I just didn't want to hit that place where I was grinding and like suddenly realized, okay, there's a huge gap between my layers. This is garbage.
Yeah.
So it was not really a delamination so far as in realizing that it wasn't going to take to begin with,
Right.
Gotcha.
and just saying, you know what, ultimately it was 2 hours lost, so it wasn't even, it was a small fraction that day. That was the worst thing that happened on the shoot, on the Naginata. So they had to blow that a little out of proportion to get the drama that's necessary for good TV.
Of course.
Yeah.
Had you ever made any other weapons that had a long?
I had not made any pole arms up to that point. That was the first pole arm I'd ever made, and in that space, it was longer than the space was wide, so it was always at an angle in the shop. A challenge. Here I have a little bit more room.
Yeah. Yes.
So that was all we had for your first episode, and then you went on for the Champion of Champions.
Right.
So contestants had to make a competition chopper prior to the show, and judges criticized the size of the handle.
The handle that you had.
Yeah, I'm a small guy.
Is this the design you sell batches of? And if so, did you adjust the handle size?
Oh, well, yeah, this is the new handle pre-grinding, so it'll actually get bigger than that after grinding. You can see, forging to my hand, I need to then open it up a little bit, but it will fit most people's hands. I mean, you guys can see it's in your hand.
Yeah, it's comfortable.
Yeah.
For me, it would be.
It would be a little bit, yeah.
I just imagined you swinging that, and I had a very interesting.
It's your turn to pick up the kids.
So yeah.
Neil Kamimura and the other contestants are well known in the bladesmithing community as you are. Was it intimidating competing with them?
Absolutely, yeah. But, I mean, again, if you approach it from the standpoint of I'm here to have fun,
Right.
and not I'm here to compete or win or lose. Well, why would you be able to lose? But yeah, you get the idea. That's what allowed me to approach it like from the perspective of, oh, I just got to make some new friends and forge alongside them, and it was cool. We had a little competition, but
it's more of a cool experience than it is.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I gotta really beat this guy, or oh,
I'm
man,
sure,
how can I win?
as a lot of the guys you've interviewed have said, there's a lot of camaraderie between all the folks that come on the show. You can't really be an asshole in this community. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Everyone's too close-knit, knows each other, word gets around immediately. Not that should be the reason that you're not nice, but you get what you get.
Yeah.
Just be nice.
Just
Everyone,
be nice.
just
Yeah.
be a good person.
You never know when that person's going to help you pick up the power hammer that's being sold at the shop next to them or whatever, and
Oh, yeah.
just never burn bridges. That's the big one.
So, Ben Abbott was asked to be a judge on the show after winning his Champion of Champions episode.
Right, yeah.
And I believe this was the first episode he was a judge on. When he was doing this.
Yes, Ben was, he was a little nervous. He didn't have any reason to be, but it was like one of his first times being on that side of things.
Yeah.
You could definitely see it. He wanted to make sure things were fair, and that he wasn't playing favorites, and that, everyone got the same level of attention, if that makes sense.
So,
no favoritism is the big
yeah, of course. So, that being said, if they called you up, would you be a judge on the show, and that you're one of the Champion of Champions as well, like Ben Abbott?
That's a tough one. I think I would enjoy being a judge, but to be a judge in a show, I would have to ask permission from a couple of the Smiths that have been doing it decades longer than me. Like, I'm friends with Jason now. I would want to get his input on it, right? If he said, yeah, you're skilled, but you're not there yet, I would respect that, and I would, I'd have to pass on it. Although that said, he's such a supportive guy. It's hard to imagine.
Right.
But he's also honest, so it's that it's a bit of dichotomy there.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't know. You guys know something I don't?
No, not at all.
Then, we'll cross that bridge when it.
Yeah.
Rarely do we know things that you guys don't.
Yes,
true.
Were you surprised to see Ben Abbott as a judge, as this was his first episode as a judge?
I wasn't surprised to see Ben as a judge. He's a very skilled Smith. It just makes sense. especially with having 1-2 episodes that it just made logical sense. Yeah, he gave great commentary, and so no, I wasn't surprised.
So we've heard from other people we've interviewed that the judges, not the judges so much, but people in behind the scenes, don't like it if you give hints or advice to the people you're competing against. I know the judges always like to say, we love to see the camaraderie, we love to see them talking, but we've heard the opposite side of things where they're saying, stop talking, go back to your forge, do this, that. And I bring it up because there was one section where you were giving Neil some advice.
Right, yeah, I didn't get that impression at all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is news to me. Yeah, I mean, they encouraged us to converse with one another if we felt it was necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely didn't get a stink eye or anything for talking to Neil during the forging. I don't know, yeah.
We've heard it either a producer would say it, or even Ben would.
Really?
Or not, I'm sorry, not Ben, Will.
Yeah,
Didn't we hear like Will was like, hey,
On one of the
go
shows.
back to your.
Well, that's the thing with Will is you can't tell if he's yanking your chain or being serious.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I said I could see how maybe he was messing with someone
And they took it
and they
seriously.
took it very seriously.
Yeah, it could be.
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
We like to call it Doug cams. This episode has a good Theo cam. What was going through your head when Neil was screaming at his quench tank?
Oh, yeah. I thought he had hurt himself. I was genuinely concerned that he had burned himself or smashed a finger or something. You get just quenching, so that's what I was.
Right.
He burned off some of his hair or something. But then I immediately realized he was just getting very frustrated, which is understandable.
That'll happen.
Yeah, it's. I mean, as a teacher, your instincts. You can't not try and if someone's in help, but someone
Right.
needs help. Stop what you're doing and give them a
See what's
hand.
going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you actually expect the judges to hold your blade for handle size?
I did. I thought they would. I don't know. It just felt like the right question at the time, and all right, so they wouldn't. That's fine. No big loss.
You're making a weapon for someone else to use.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you ask them if?
Well, it was a good
For
commentary that he gave me, but he didn't let me follow it up with anything. So
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
So, not to spoil the episode, but you made it into the finals. As you know, you're a champion of champions here. And your final challenge was the Tai Chi sword.
Mm-hmm.
So, what did you think of the Tai Chi sword when you saw it? Had you ever made anything similar to that?
Well, I did Wing Chun for a number of years, so I was vaguely familiar with. Well, I had used the Tao, and then the Jian or the Tai Chi sword, as they call it. It's not. That's not the name. It's called a Jian,
Okay.
right? It's like the Chinese version of an arming sword, right? It's not specific to Tai Chi.
Mm-hmm.
I believe historically it existed several hundred years before Tai Chi. That's a whole other thing.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a fun sword. I thought it was going to be too simple a challenge almost. It's a similar blade to what I'm used to producing. So that's why I did the integral element, because I felt like, all hubris aside, that it was almost too easy, if that makes sense. Like, it was something I'd done so many times before. I wanted to really add this extra flair to it that would make it an unnecessarily hard challenge, Instead of just, let me just pump out another one of these swords, let me add something to it that's going to make it, difficult,
Right.
legitimately difficult for me. And it was. It worked well, yeah. And I think it added something to the blade that really, gave it some extra life.
What did you spend your 20 grand on?
Now you're sitting in it. This shop.
Nice shop.
Where I make knives and teach, and a lot goes into insurance.
Of course. Yeah.
Having students swinging hammers at hot steel in New York City is expensive.
Yeah.
But we make it work. Yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah.
Do you still forge ashes into people's blades?
So I did forge ashes into blades for my family members using my grandparents' ashes, and I had done something similar for the parents of a friend of mine who had passed away. Since then, I've found better ways of including that in the handle by impregnating it in epoxy with other things mixed in, things that matter to them, jewelry and such. I like that more than putting it in the blade because I believe it's calcium phosphate. Someone's going to correct me on that at some point, but let's say calcium phosphate from the bones after being cremated is pretty bad for steel. It's a huge issue if you have layers of steel with like a fine banding of it in between. So technically I made an inferior blade because of that. Now that said, the memento is the most important part, but everything we make in the shop should be more than just serviceable. It should perform well. So since then I found that ways to do it.
Cool. Yeah. You recently visited the UK for a vacation. Did you do any forging while you were there?
No, I went to the UK to visit my wife's family and take it easy. It was a vacation. Yeah.
Good.
But people continually ask me if I visited Alex Steele.
Right.
And that was when I found out he was in the UK. I don't do much YouTube, so...
Well, we'll have to send you the link so you can check this video out later on.
How was Blade, the Blade show?
Blade is good. Yeah, it's a lot of people. It's funny saying this as someone who lives in New York City, but it was too many people to be around for me.
Oh, wow.
Like it was overwhelming. 50,000 people. You know, it's a lot of people in one space. There's just something about it that makes me somewhat uncomfortable. But what was great, of course, is seeing all of the guys from Forged in Fire, all these other the idols that I've been basing my work off of for years. Like I got to see Master Smith Lin Ray again, and he's always been an inspiration for my work.
Were you exhibiting?
At Blade, I did share a table with a lot of the other guys from Forged in Fire, which was pretty cool. You know, we got to see a very wide variety of work on one table.
So, as part of my preparation for these interviews, I also go through your Instagram account and see what you posted, see if there's anything particularly interesting that stands out separate from bladesmithing.
Okay.
Are you still playing Hearthstone?
Oh yeah, I play Hearthstone pretty much daily, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know we talked at lunchtime. Fallout 76 is coming soon.
Oh yeah.
And when that comes out, I may have to send you a little message. Here's
Oh,
my
of course, we'll
username.
play together. Yeah, absolutely. We don't have to mod the game any longer to play multiplayer.
Yes, exactly.
So it works out pretty well.
That'd be cool. We get our hands on some nukes and blow some people up.
Absolutely, yeah.
You've worked with Jason Knight in your shop before.
Briefly, yeah.
He's the creator of Be a Maker, Not a Taker movement. Do you have a personal philosophy for what you do?
Not to that extreme,
Right.
if that makes sense. The way that the world is set up these days, not everyone can be a maker. There has to be people buying your shit.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, am I allowed to swear?
Of course.
Oh, okay. Good. I like swearing. Yeah, there's got to be people to buy your shit, no matter how tough it is to see people struggling in the food service industry or working construction and they don't want to. We need people to do jobs that are tough and they don't necessarily want to do. I don't think you should look down on people who buy from the makers, who patronize us. Oh, no, that's not the right word. Who are our patrons.
Right.
Oops. Because that's the foundation of I wouldn't be able to do what I do if it wasn't for those folks. I think ultimately it's hard to find a happy middle ground of, if you do not enjoy making, right, then you can contribute to society in other ways. you can support the people that do enjoy making, right? Buy things that are handmade. If you, for whatever reason, people keep telling themselves, I can't do this, I can't work with my hands, I can't paint, I can't draw, I can't write. And sure, maybe you're right, maybe you are incapable of doing that, but you have to try first, and then you can go, okay, I like this guy's work, right? I'm gonna support him, and I'm gonna keep trying to find the thing that works for me, right? You can do both of those things, or you could just support the people that you like the work of. You don't only have to feel like you're not contributing to society if you're not making something yourself. I know there's a long, drawn-out way of saying you don't have to make to contribute to society.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
You just need to find the right people to support. You know, instead of buying an IKEA knife, maybe support a custom maker.
Mhm.
That's all I'm saying. You don't have to feel like you need to make something to be a productive member of society.
Right.
You can just do something and support the people around you and do something positive. Although, obviously, I encourage you to try the craft first.
How did you get into bladesmithing, and were you a blacksmith first?
I got into knife making working at an art supply store in East Village. Basically, with my 50% discount, I was able to buy a stainless steel straight edge and files and hacksaw and kind of like turn it into a knife, sort of. And then, of course, I made this oversized, almost like a sword, machete sort of thing. And it just didn't perform right, didn't hold an edge, the handle was all janky. What's going on here? I look online, I find out that there's like a community and there's books and there's all these things I can do to improve on it. And that kind of got me started on my self-education. And then after college, I went to the UK and I studied under Mastersmith Owen Bush. He's very well known for his pattern welding. And that's what got me into making Damascus and folded steel and doing some of the more complex designs. When I returned back to the States, I continued with that. And kind of always was doing it in the background of my day job until Forged and Fire.
I saved 2 other pictures from your Instagram account, specifically because there was no captions on them. What am I looking at here?
That is the head of a pommel. So it was a large fighting knife based off of a weapon from Monster Hunter. So
okay.
the Kezu is a traditional Monster Hunter. It's a blind, vampiric-like subterranean monster.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it has a great weapon in the game, but it's like, 8 feet tall. So I did a scaled down fighting knife version of it.
Okay.
And I used 3D printing for it.
Oh, you did for that one?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, cool. Yep.
Do you have a favorite style and blade to make?
So I'm at a weird point in my career where I should be starting to settle into a style and kind of like choosing the direction I'm going, and I'm not. It's because I don't have a style. Like I have certain things that I'm sort of known for doing. Like if it's mono steel, it probably has a Hamon, or my general handle shapes usually have a little bit of curvature to them. But yeah, I don't have a style, so yeah, I don't know what to tell you.
It's not like, it's some people, I guess, would maybe like, they're all about like a kukri, like, yeah, I love making those.
Yeah, those are fun. Yeah, I don't want to only make them.
Right.
Yeah, I like the idea of being able to see something on the show. Be like, that's fun. I think I'll make that. And just do it in maybe a little bit of my style.
Mm-hmm.
Putting a flair on it, maybe a forged integral element or something. I guess, yeah, my assistant keeps telling me that integrals seem to be my style. I guess I can't disagree with that because he watches the work every day, so he knows probably better than I do.
Beyond taking an introductory class, as a teacher, what is the best beginner advice you would have? Or advice?
It's tough. But my advice to anyone that's starting is go slow. Both in pacing yourself, making sure that you're safe, but also don't jump into an overly complex project. And you're not going to know what overly complex is, right? You probably want to read up a little bit to understand what most people do as their first projects, right? A sword is a bit much, right? That said, I do have students who come in and make a sword and it's kick-ass. But usually from then, they don't come back because that's the project, that's the thing they wanted to make. If you're interested in the educational aspect of it, what makes a knife a knife? What makes a sword a sword? Why is there this difference when we think of the two? You know, if you're looking to answer these questions, then yeah, you probably want to start with a knife and work your way up so that you can get the answers to them, you know, progressively. Understand it in a deeper level. Otherwise, you're just going to focus too much on that end product and not what makes a sword. You know, why is it bending and holding an edge or not? Yeah.
Oh. How many times do you need to make a particular style of blade before you are comfortable teaching somebody else to make one?
Once, usually. The reason I say that is because I don't focus on teaching any particular one style. I don't have a utility knife class. I don't have a Bowie knife class. I have a small, medium, large, and sword class, right? So I have every week people coming in with some really strange blades from history, science fiction, anime, whatever they've pulled it from. They come in with this wild idea, and maybe together we dial it back to something a little bit more reasonable, you know, maybe even functional, you know, first and foremost. And there will be times when it doesn't really exist. Like there is no historical reference. So we're kind of just making it there the first time. In which case, it'd be my first time making that particular knife with them, and we're figuring it out together. But usually that's the really wacky, out-of-this-world stuff. For the most part, it's something I'm familiar with quite a few times before.
Yeah.
The reason I say all this is because I do encourage students to come to me with fucking crazy ideas to make it happen.
Right.
Let me talk you into dialing it back a little bit, but let's still try and make it happen.
Yeah, cool. That's cool. That's it. It's nice to hear that you're open to that. Whereas there may be other people out there that are like, this is what we're teaching this class, and you come and you learn how to make this particular knife.
Yeah.
And you learn how to make it well, but it's focused. That's one thing.
That already exists. There are other guys doing that really well. I wanted to offer another option that accommodates the kind of wacky New York schedule, right? Mm-hmm. People who need to just disappear to pick up their kids or have to take a call for a meeting, they may not be able to spend the whole day with me. So they got to be able to drop their project and go off and do their whatever their life entails and come back and pick it up and not have missed anything. That's really important. It's why I only have 4 students at a time. So you get that attention that you need, because your project is not at all like the person you're standing next to.
Right.
And the person next to you or them is just out of this world. Yeah, I can't teach you both at the same time. You know, well, I take that back. There are definitely steps that overlap. But usually it's like you're doing a recurve, you're doing a long curved sword. Hold on one second, let me show him this step and I'll come back to you, because if you watch him do his step, you're going to be confused, sort of thing.
Right.
What size propane tank do you use and how long does it last on your fluid?
Yeah, so here in New York City, we are very limited to what we can use. I use a 43-pound tank, and that's pretty much the limitation. And I'm not upgrading simply because eventually I'll be tapping into the natural gas system for the building.
Oh, okay.
Which is kind of like the ideal way to work, because then you're not limited to just what you have. It's an endless supply.
Right, you're not worried about filling up or,
It's a pain.
I only have so many hours left, and
yeah. And I'm limited to pretty much their delivery guys, which are nice people. But I'm not.
You're not their only customer.
I'm not their only customer, and I'm making pennies for them. You know, they got big industrial sites that they need to visit with 100-pound canisters and such.
After a long day of forging and teaching, what do you like to do to relax and unwind?
Well, I'm a big fan of anime, yeah. Who'd thunk? Video games, of course. Just starting to get into 3D printing, which is at home. I've always done 3D printing, but now I have one at home.
Oh, cool.
And becoming a little bit of a house husband. It's nice. You know, I've never really cared so much about the apartment, and now all of a sudden it matters. So that's nice.
That's cool. That sort of thing, as you get older, just starts to naturally ingrain itself in your head.
Yeah, I'm
We've
finding
come to
that,
notice
yeah.
the same thing as we work on our house and do things. But, yeah.
The messier the kids get, the more he needs to be clean.
Yeah, I can understand that, yeah.
Is there any question we should have asked that we didn't?
What's your biggest mistake? What's, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Accident, mishap, broken blade, most regretted thing, I think is usually, that would be a good one. Because there's always something that's in the back of your mind.
Right.
That one project, the one, what's the saying? Only serial killers and detectives should have the one that got away.
So what is the one thing?
Not starting earlier.
Oh.
I should have started earlier. As soon as I knew that this was something that you could do, I should have started. And not drag my feet on it, you know. There was some sort of, at the time, there wasn't a TV show. There wasn't such a huge online community. So I did not know that I could actually maybe even make this a career. That wasn't even an option. It didn't even occur to me. And then, of course, after the classes and everything, I realized, oh my God, all this wasted time that I could be getting my feet under me. Thankfully, I got plenty of young, tween and teen students that are making up that gap for me.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool.
That should be
I think-
a lesson to us, Sean. We're taking too long. We got to get our forge up and running so that we can start
I
doing
agree.
it.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Let's put some propane.
Yeah, let's get it going. All right.
Surprise.